Once awakened from a dream, Xingyun returned to the moment when he had just emerged from the mountain. Once dreamed of idle clouds and wild cranes, but in the end, the common people were slaughtered because of him and could not live freely. At the end of the dream, Siyuan ordered the northern desert to conquer Qi, causing great suffering. Thieves lead the way, and without great harmony, how can they comply with my wishes? If the will of the heavenly way causes suffering for the common people and the sinking of the divine realm, then what about being a domineering and rebellious traveler? Keywords of the novel. Villain, the rebirth of the dark star without a pop-up window. Villain, the rebirth of the dark star. Download the complete text. Villain, the rebirth of the dark star. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1 Preface. A Dream of Yellow Sorghum. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Preface. A Dream of Yellow Sorghum in the 4th year of Xingyun. He Ling. Sure enough, the emperor has a backup. In front of the coffin, Xingyun held a Huan sword and looked at Xingyun's corpse inside the coffin, listening to the bell coming from behind, as if feeling emotional. The internal strength of Jianguo was exhausted, and he was hit by Jianguo's full-strength palm, which greatly increased his skill. His qi was completely broken, and his 5 internal organs were damaged, yet his vitality was not yet cut off. The emperor is the emperor. Xingyun's eyes were full of fierce intent, and the sharp Huan sword fell. The bell behind him became even more urgent. Xingyun used his internal strength and palms to exert force, and the Huan sword twisted inside the huge wound on Xingyun's chest. Blood flowed like a torrent. With a click, the coffin in front of him couldn't withstand Xingyun's fierce sword, and a crack appeared. Xingyun's extremely fierce expression on his face contrasted sharply with his image as a white-clad scholar at the moment. The trigger on the body of the emperor has also changed from its original red color to half white. Farewell to the emperor. After the ceremony, Xingyun bowed respectfully in front of the coffin. Live well. The future path will depend on you to walk on your own. In the future, when you occasionally look up at the starry sky, will you miss your master, and those who didn't deserve to die were all because of you. 10,000 poison caves, eternal calamity. If I can survive, I won't like you anymore. In the next life, in the Songbing Valley, we will not see each other. How much more will this absurd life come to an end? In the 2nd year of Qianhua. In the forest. The mountains are lush, filled with the fragrance of grass and trees. The forest is quiet, with strange stones like the sea, trees angry like waves, and a few strands of clear water flowing endlessly from the mountains. The sunlight shines through the trees and hits the rocks, creating beautiful spots of light. Under the shade of the tree, a handsome young man with red clothes and hair slowly opened his eyes. The scene in front of him made the young man's heart tremble. He sat up on the rocks and looked around at the surroundings. What catches the eye are the beautiful scenery of the mountains, as well as the bamboo baskets for loading medicine and the hose for picking medicine. The bamboo basket is empty. This is. Xingyun reached out and rubbed his eyes in disbelief, looking around at the environment. This is the place where he lived for 8 years, during which he traveled to every part of the mountain. This is Qingqing Mountain. Xingyun used his martial arts techniques, only to find that his entire body was only at the level of the little heavenly position, and the internal power of the Dragon Spring 7-star technique and Qi Classic, that he practiced diligently also disappeared. Upon inspection, it was found that his height seemed to have returned to the state he was in when he was 17 years old, and the scar at the corner of his eye also disappeared. What the hell? Xingyun was lost in infinite thoughts. Suddenly, a thunderous explosion in the sky interrupted his thoughts. Jianlu, yes, Jianlu. Xingyun suddenly thought of something and used all his skills to quickly rush towards the direction of Jianlu in his memory. Behind a tree in the distance, Uncle Yang was slightly shocked when he saw Xingyun's speed. This speed, at least there must be a big star position, no, even higher. Why hasn't it been before? He instinctively turned his gaze towards the person beside him, who was dressed in a black robe embroidered with obscure and mysterious patterns. He wore a mask on his face and a hat on his head, with no visible skin on his body. Bad handsome, Yuan Tiangang. The mask has no eyes in its double eyes, only an endless darkness, like an abyss, unfathomable and chilling. Why, my beloved disciple has excellent martial arts skills. Aren't you happy as a master? A faint voice came from behind the mask. No. Uncle Yang turned his gaze elsewhere and said calmly. Only he knows whether his heart is calm or not. What should we do next? You don't need me to teach you, do you? Yuan Tiangang hugged his chest with both hands and said to Uncle Yang. Is it to be executed immediately? Uncle Yang was slightly moved, looking at the rocks at his feet, and asked in response. He knew that as soon as his disciple left, he would sink into a sea of suffering, with no possibility of a good end. Why, can't we let go? Yuan Tiangang asked Uncle Yang in reverse. I know. Uncle Yang had no choice but to follow the order. He knew that even if he couldn't bear to part with it, it would be of no use. Because the person in front of me is Yuan Tiangang. A person who can become a shackle in this world with their own strength. Qingqing Mountain, Jianlu. Li Xingyun exerted all his strength to use his lightness skills, but he returned to the sword house one step earlier than his master, Uncle Yang. At this moment, a layer of dark clouds had already covered the sky, and a cold wind was rising, as if clouds and rain were about to rise. The familiar scene in front of him moved Li Xingyun's expression. His lips and eyes trembled slightly as he walked step by step into the once most familiar place. Senior brother, are you back now? Lu Linxian happened to walk out of his room in the sword house and looked at Li Xingyun, who was somewhat lost and confused, with a puzzled expression on his face. A familiar graceful figure caught the eye. Junior sister. Li Xingyun's mind moved and his figure quickly reached Lu Linchuan's side. Looking at Lu Linxian, whose face still had a hint of greenness in front of him, Li Xingyun's face was full of emotion. In the forest, flowers bloomed to welcome spring. Goodbye to Lu Linxian, who is as graceful as a startled swan and as graceful as a wandering dragon. No one can imagine how happy he is at this moment. This scene frightened Lu Linxian quite a bit. Martial artists in the world practice martial arts and practice qi, with qi divided into 2 classes and 6 levels. Her current skill level is only the lowest, and with the speed of Li Xingyun's skill level, it looks like a ghost to her. What's even more frightening is the expression on her senior brother's face at this moment. With red eyes, she could feel the person in front of her pressing down on her inner emotions, but she didn't know where this emotion came from. Senior brother, are you okay? Lu Linxian looked at Li Xingyun with some uncertainty and asked. On weekdays, she can still feel the wrongs of her loved ones by playing and making noise. Moreover, day and night after day, the senior brother who usually laughs and plays with her seems to have changed. How can she not worry? At this moment, I no longer have the usual thoughts of laughing and playing around. Junior sister, where's master? Li Xingyun looked at Lu Linxian and asked. Master, he went down the mountain alone and hasn't returned yet. What's wrong with you and master? I always feel that master's family has not been normal lately. Also, senior brother, what was that just now? With a worried expression on his face, Lu Linxian looked at Li Xingyun and said, while extending his finger to indicate the distance from the entrance of the sword house to her side. After 8 years of getting along, she often regarded her senior brother as a close relative and the backbone. Ha ha ha. Li Xingyun laughed up to the sky, not only with a different kind of desolation that did not belong to a 17-year-old boy. He has been thinking about this scene for many years. Every time he looks up at the starry sky, he carefully reflects on every day he once lived in the sword house. The deceased are like a stream that cannot be traced, but the master is still alive. Everyone is still alive. Master, senior brother, don't scare me. If you have something to do, don't keep it in your heart. Lu Linxian looked at the obviously abnormal senior brother in front of him, feeling extremely worried. Junior sister, let me explain some things later. Li Xingyun looked at Lu Linxian in front of him and said sincerely. From the days before and after he and his junior sister left Jianlu, he pondered for a long time in the future. Li Xingyun inferred that at this moment, the bad handsome had already found his master. There is nothing he can do about Yuan Tiangang, but in order to deal with many future calamities, the stronger he is, the better. He has complete Dragon Spring 7-star technique and Qi Classic in his memory. At this moment, his power is not far from the mid-heaven position, and when he practices both, this mid-heaven position is almost the same. Indulging in a bad person cannot be extricated. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Leaving the Mountain. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Leaving the Mountain. Qingqing Mountain, Jianlu. Uncle Yang walked slowly back to the Jianlu with his hands behind his back. As soon as he entered the Jianlu, he saw Lu Linxian anxiously guarding in front of Li Xingyun's room, walking back and forth. Uncle Yang's face was serious and he walked slowly towards the sword house without any expression. Master. As soon as Lu Linxian turned around, he saw his master slowly approaching from outside the sword house. He quickly stepped forward and said hello. Lu Linxian was naturally detached and wanted to make a joke, but when he saw his master's serious expression, he suddenly lost his mind. Where's your senior brother? Uncle Yang looked at Lu Linxian and asked. Practicing martial arts in the room. Master, when will my senior brother learn martial arts? Lu Linxian scratched his head and was greatly surprised by the changes that now appeared on Li Xingyun. Sigh, Uncle Yang sighed and then said to Lu Linxian in a bad mood, why don't you ask him yourself if you want to know? This girl doesn't usually put in too much effort when practicing martial arts. I have taught her hand-to-hand for 8 years, and now she only has the skills of a small star position. In fact, according to his inference, with Lu Linxuan's qualifications, if she works hard, she would at least have a medium star position by now. There's not much I can teach you, Uncle Yang sighed as he looked up at Li Xingyun and Lu Linxian. He regarded them as his own, but since the bad handsome came to his door, everything was too late. What's going on today? So are you, master, and my senior brother, each one seems to have changed people. For Lu Linxian, Li Xingyun and Uncle Yang are her last close relatives, and caring is chaotic. At this moment, Li Xingyun pushed open the door of the sword house and walked out. After sorting out his clothes a little, Li Xingyun walked out of the room, feeling refreshed. He was relaxed and happy when he saw the beautiful scenery in Qingqing Mountain. In the last life, after leaving the mountain, he knew how rare the Qingqing Mountain scenery was, which he had seen day and night for the past 8 years. Just now, he had already completed the complete Dragon Spring 7-star technique, with a significant increase in skill, almost identical to the mid-heaven position. With just a few days of diligent practice, it was easy to break through the mid-heaven position. This 7-star technique can be practiced in the mind, which is suitable for him. As for the Qi Classic, it can be practiced when his martial arts break through the mid-heaven position. The martial arts he practiced are different from his close friend Zhang Zifen's Supreme Holy Qiankuan Gong and 5 Thunder Tianxin Ju. The Supreme Holy Qiankuan Gong is pure and pure, similar in nature to the Tiangang Ju and 7-star Ju. However, the 5 Thunder Tianxin Ju combines yin and yang, generates and complements each other, and the two can be combined into one, transforming the two techniques into one. Just like the upper and lower volumes of Jiuyou Xiantian divine arts. Although both the Heavenly Gang technique and the 7-star technique are the most pure and righteous divine arts, they are like Yuan Tiangong's domineering and Li Chuanfeng's heavenly Tao. The two are difficult to rely on and coexist, but also difficult to merge into one. But the Qi Jing can help him integrate the two into one. In his previous life, he practiced this, Qi Jing, in the 12 caves of Ruxue, not only recovering from his injuries, but also breaking through the great heavenly realm with his martial arts. This time, he will only be stronger than before. Master, junior sister, Li Xingyun said calmly as he walked up to Uncle Yang and Lu Linxian. At this moment, he was overjoyed in his heart, but after all the trials and tribulations, he had already matured much more than before. You two come with me. Uncle Yang's face became increasingly cold and serious. He looked at the two people with a serious tone, and then walked over Li Xingyun, straight to the lobby of Jianlu. Master, Li Xingyun said as he looked at Uncle Yang's back. At this moment, his tone was less calm and more inexplicable. Uncle Yang paused in his footsteps and stopped in place. Thanks to Master's 8 years of care, today I have a heartfelt message to say. I wonder if Master can give me this opportunity. Li Xingyun looked at Uncle Yang's back and asked calmly. Okay. Uncle Yang turned his head and looked at Li Xingyun's resolute expression as he walked towards the inside of the sword house. Senior brother, are you? Lu Linxian felt something terrible was about to happen, with a slight sense of foreboding in his heart. Don't worry, Li Xingyun looked at Lu Linxian with a gentle smile. Throughout our journey, Lao Li has focused on providing reassurance. For some reason, when Lu Linxian heard the words, rest assured, coming out of Li Xingyun's mouth, his heart thumped. Looking at the senior brother who followed Uncle Yang, Lu Linxian stomped his feet and angrily turned his face in the other direction. What, both of them seem to have changed, whispering to each other and not taking me. If you don't bring it, then don't bring it. Humph, I'm going to practice swordsmanship. She turned around and walked, but didn't take 2 steps, but couldn't help but turn her head and look worried at the backs of Li Xingyun and Uncle Yang. Inside the sword house. Uncle Yang sat on the main seat, opposite him. Li Xingyun sat upright, with an empty seat next to him, which belonged to Lu Linxian. Speak up, what do you have to say? Uncle Yang pretended to be serious and stared at Li Xingyun in front of him. Li Xingyun looked at Uncle Yang and the precious sword hanging behind him, with a hint of nostalgia in his expression. Master, you may have doubts in your heart, Li Xingyun asked as he looked at Uncle Yang. Nothing, Uncle Yang said lightly. As a villain named Tian Lixing, he was familiar with Li Xingyun's body movements. However, what are his doubts? Moreover, one's own disciple has a trump card that one doesn't know, which is a good thing, isn't it? Unfortunately, his attempt to bless Li Xingyun was not as handsome as his bad intentions, but he ultimately failed to achieve his goal. Master, I had a dream, a very long dream, Li Xingyun spoke calmly, but with a hint of indescribable vicissitudes. Is it bitter or sweet? Uncle Yang asked subconsciously when he saw Li Xingyun's expression and thought of the child's appearance 8 years ago. I don't know, Li Xingyun said lightly. It's just a dream, how come I don't know? Uncle Yang asked. If it's sweet, ultimately it won't live up to its desired appearance. If we talk about hardship, from the Lushan rebellion, when there were numerous feudal lords, to the uprisings of Wang Xianji and Huang Chao, where officials were killed and officials were executed, and people were killed everywhere. The powerful and powerful held high, vying for power and profit, recklessly abusing the people, levying and profiteering. In the court, there was a struggle between cattle and plums, and outside the court, ambitious people were grinding their teeth and sucking blood. Under the rule of feudal lords and towns, they fought against each other. If it's hard, how can we endure the struggles of those who survive, those who live in dire straits, and those who should not have died? Therefore, although dreams are long, they do not know the joys and sorrows. After Li Xingyun finished speaking, he looked at Uncle Yang and the mysterious sword hanging high in the hall behind him. At this moment, he thought of a dream he had once had, in which his master often wielded this sword to clean the door for him. You've grown up, Uncle Yang sighed as he looked at Li Xingyun. People always have mistakes, only then can they gain enlightenment. To this day, I only realize why my master did not allow me to practice martial arts, and what I paid for it. Just some things, they can't escape after all. I am a member of the Li family. Once, I believed that after a chaotic era, there would always be great harmony. Therefore, I followed the will of heaven and did not let my own selfish interests cause chaos for the people of the world, resulting in the birth of spiritual charcoal. Therefore, I have long let go of my desire to restore the country. Speaking of this, Li Xingyun couldn't help but laugh at himself as he realized that he had become the emperor after returning from Ruxue. But I forgot that the great harmony after the chaos was not only determined by fate, but also by human intervention. Whether it is the ambitious generation or the adventurer who goes against the sky, the cause and effect all originate from the Li family's lineage, making it the chaotic world we have today. I may close my eyes and remain silent, but with the chaos of war and chaos, and the sinking of the world, and the rule of thieves, there will be no greater harmony. After careful consideration, it will ultimately not go according to my wishes. I want to enter the heavenly element with my body and seek a glimmer of vitality in the dead end. Speaking of this, Li Xingyun stood up and moved towards the center of the sword house lobby, facing Uncle Yang, respectfully bowing. Master, are you willing to join me in seeking that glimmer of vitality? Idiot, villain. Anyway, once you wake up from a dream, you really have grown up. It's not like it used to be. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Encountering Ruxue again. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Encountering Ruxue again. 3 days later. Li Xingyun and Lu Linxian walked together in the quiet dense forest. Lu Linxian held a sword in his hand and walked behind Li Xingyun. Li Xingyun carried a bundle and hung the sword around his waist, walking ahead. 3 days ago, Uncle Yang used Jinghong to enlighten Lu Linxian and help him break through the middle star position. Then, 2 days ago, he drove Li Xingyun and Lu Linxian out under the pretext of sending a letter to the Cangbing Valley. Hello, senior brother. Halfway through, Lu Linxian couldn't help but stop and look at Li Xingyun walking ahead. Junior sister. Li Xingyun was pondering what to do next. Hearing Lu Linxuan's call, he turned to look at the other person and waited for the next message. Hey, senior brother, I don't care about you, so you really don't care about me. Lu Linxian quickly walked a few steps and caught up with Li Xingyun, pointing to his senior brother's nose. Starting from 3 days ago, she deliberately ignored Li Xingyun. After all, the two of them had come this way for almost 8 years. However, halfway through the conversation, Lu Linxian did realize that she was being a bit troublesome and ended the latter half of the sentence with a slight awkwardness. Hi, how dare you? I have been practicing martial arts these 3 days. Li Xingyun saw that Lu Linxian had misunderstood and explained to him. During these 3 days, he only focused on thinking and practicing the 7-star technique, and indeed didn't have time to talk to Lu Linxian. With 3 days of hard work, combined with the intricacies of the Longquan 7-star technique and the secrets he had diligently cultivated and comprehended in his previous life, Li Xingyun's martial arts have now surpassed the mid-heaven level, although he has only just surpassed it. All martial arts in the world need to be based on strong internal power. The internal power is strong enough, and even if the martial arts are as poor as Hua Batzi or Goe Tu, it can easily lead to death. The internal power is not enough, and even the world's top martial arts such as Longquan sword technique and Huayang needle technique cannot exert their power. You can fool me, what have you been practicing these 3 days? Also, let me ask you, what's wrong with your martial arts? I asked my master, and he said your martial arts are better than mine. What's going on here? Also, why do you feel like you've changed a person? Also, Lu Linxuan's questions popped up one after another, making Li Xingyun unable to resist. Hey, my little ancestor, one question at a time, one question at a time. How can I answer so many of your questions? Li Xingyun waved his hand repeatedly, interrupting Lu Linxuan's constant stream of questions. Looking at Lu Linxuan's beautiful face, Li Xingyun couldn't help but think of the girl who risked her life to block Jiang Renjia's palm in the sword house fire that day. Her junior sister had done too much for him along the way. Just this time, no one needs to sacrifice for him. Okay, let me ask you, besides sighing, you've been chopping bamboo sticks for the past 3 days. What have you been practicing? Lu Linxian pinched his waist with both hands and asked as he looked at Li Xingyun. Do you really want to see it? Li Xingyun looked at Lu Linxian, his face suddenly turning from playful to serious, and asked. Lu Linxian was startled by his change in expression, but then he nodded with anticipation in his eyes and looked at his senior brother. Okay, junior sister, please keep an eye on it, because of this sword. Li Xingyun said in a gentle voice. How about it? Lu Linxian nodded, looking forward even more. It will be very handsome. Li Xingyun shook his red hair and put on a self-proclaimed handsome look, saying. Fuck you. Lu Linxian turned his head and said disdainfully, but his eyes still secretly looked in the direction of his senior brother. Li Xingyun didn't say much anymore. He pinched the magic technique with his left hand and gathered golden flames, exerting a slight force to lift the sword hanging from his waist with his full internal strength. His hand did not touch the hilt, but he could wield the sword like an arm. With a wave of his hand, the sharp sword, aided by the golden internal power of the 7-star technique, transformed into a golden flash, piercing through a large tree several tens of meters away between lightning, fire, and stones. At this moment, Lu Linxian had gradually turned his head to look at Li Xingyun. Goodbye, Li Xingyun made a grip on the flying sword and used his internal strength to recall it from the air and insert it back into the scabbard. Wow! Senior brother, how did you practice this skill? When he first emerged from the mountain, there were still some girls with a certain temperament. At this moment, Lu Linxian had already forgotten about other issues, and in his eyes and heart, there was only Li Xingyun's handsome sword. Li Xingyun reached out with a hint of showing off and a strand of red hair, proudly looking at his junior sister. Let our loved ones see our own growth, like returning to our hometown with wealth and honor, our old Li feels comfortable in his heart. Just before he was proud for 3 seconds, Lu Linxuan's movements were beyond his control. I saw Lu Linxian collapsed on the ground and burst into tears. The sound of crying was truly heartbreaking for those who heard it and tears for those who saw it. Junior sister, don't cry. As Li Xingyun looked at her lying on the ground pretending to cry, he was also helpless. With 1,000 strategies in mind, even in front of the tears of their loved ones, they could only be helpless, even though both of them knew what each other was thinking. I followed my master, who taught me hand to hand for 8 years. In the end, you left me behind so much in martial arts. Junior sister, I won't live anymore. Lu Linxian said tearfully. Alright, junior sister, don't cry. In the wilderness, if someone chops firewood or hits a wild rabbit, they might think I've hit you. Li Xingyun tried to appease junior sister, but listened to Lu Linxuan's increasing crying, with little effect. As soon as the words fell, a woodcutter carrying a basket of firewood walked up to the two of them. Lu Linxian even forgot to cry. The woodcutter looked at Lu Linxian lying on the ground, then at Li Xingyun. With a look of accusation, he pointed at Li Xingyun, sighed, and shook his head before leaving. Outside the city of Yuzhou. Near the city gate, there are vendors selling everything outside the gate. There are a few defenders at the gate, but there is no difference between having them and not having them. Li Xingyun found a stall selling tomatoes on sticks, bought 2 strings of tomatoes on sticks, and handed them to Lu Linxian after returning. Thank you, elder martial brother. Lu Linxian took tomatoes on sticks from Li Xingyun, smiled sweetly, and then began to taste it carefully. They stood in front of the tomatoes on stick stand and ate. Soon, a woman on horseback came out of the city gate of Yuzhou. The woman had a slender figure, dressed in blue clothes. Although her face was covered by a veil, her exposed skin showed a curd-like appearance. Li Xingyun once again thought a lot about the chance encounter. This man is riding a horse in the downtown, not afraid of hurting people. Lu Linxian swallowed a mouthful of tomatoes on sticks, slightly dissatisfied with Ji Rushue's behavior. It has to be said that this does have some dangerous driving implications. Grab her, don't let her run away. Not long after his words fell, he saw more than 10 riders rushing out of the gate of Yuzhou City. Those people were basically dressed in black clothes and armor, with ghost faces on their faces and curved swords on their waist, like evil spirits coming out of hell. In fact, they do live in the world as ghosts. They are the Xianming sect. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Black and White Impermanence, 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Black and White Impermanence, 1, within the city of Yuzhou. For the behavior of these people galloping on horseback, the defenders of Yuzhou City Gate turned a blind eye, completely assuming that they did not exist. Joke, that's the Xianming sect. Who dares to stop them from doing things? Elder martial brother, look at the costumes of those people. Lu Linxian swallowed the last mouthful of tomatoes on sticks, threw away the bamboo stick, looked at Li Xingyun and asked. Xianming sect, let's follow up and take a look. I can't say, there's still a chance for revenge this time. Li Xingyun looked meaningfully at Lu Linxian. Immediately, the two followed a group of members of the Xianming sect. In the dense forest, a group of Xianming sect members are chasing Ji Ruxue. Girl, leave the fire Lingji and run for your life. A person with armor different from other members of the Xianming sect looked at the masked Ji Ruxue and waved his hand. Joke, I found the fire Lingji first. Why did I give it to you? Ji Ruxue fiercely opposed it, not giving in at all. Humph. The leader of the Xianming sect sneered. As her cold laughter spread throughout the dense forest, more than 10 members of the Xianming sect held curved swords and surrounded Ji Ruxue. Why, does the Xianming sect want to rely on ghost duo to forcibly grab? Ji Ruxue looked at the Xianming sect members disdainfully. You're right. On the other hand, Li Xingyun led Lu Linxian straight towards this place, and after breaking through the mid-heaven position, Li Xingyun's 5 senses greatly improved. When the two arrived, there was still one leader of the Xianming sect and 4 or 5 members of the Xianming sect. Junior sister, I'll leave you to practice as the leader. Li Xingyun looked at Lu Linxian and said, now that Lu Linxian has just entered the martial arts world, he still needs to experience. Okay, no problem. Lu Linxian readily agreed, having practiced martial arts for many years, and she also wanted to try the power of this Qinglian sword song. Li Xingyun drew his sword, and the golden sword energy converged on the slender sword. If Ji Ruxue had a sense, but before she could turn back, her sword arrived and carried a golden divine light across the entire scene. In an instant, except for the head of the Xianming sect, all the other members of the Xianming sect fell together. This move shocked the leader of the Xianming sect and Ji Ruxue. Li Xingyun turned his head to look at Ji Ruxue, who was slightly guarded as she covered the bag of burning Ganoderma in her waist. Kid, you're tired of living and dare to meddle in the affairs of the Xianming sect. The head of the Xianming sect glanced at Li Xingyun, then at Ji Ruxue, and retreated repeatedly. There's also this girl. Lu Linxian held his sword and slowly walked out of the forest. Why, do you want more people to bully less people? The head of the Xianming sect looked at the 3 people in front of him with a slightly guarded expression. To deal with you, I'm enough alone. Lu Linxian held the sword scabbard in one hand and the handle in the other, looking at the leader of the Xianming sect. Just now, more than a dozen people hit a girl, and now it's my turn to look like this. The people of the Xianming sect are really amazing. The head of the Xianming sect sneered a few times, and took advantage of Lu Linxuan's drawing of his sword to bully him with a curved sword. In close combat, the curved sword is advantageous to the long sword, and the red-haired man's martial arts are highly skilled and unpredictable. Taking this woman wearing purple clothes as a hostage, even if unable to escape, delaying some time for the support of the impermanent lord is still excellent. But I didn't expect that there was a broken sword in the scabbard of Lu Linchuan's sword. The two figures intertwined, and the leader of the Xianming sect was killed on the spot. Thank you both for your help. Ji Ruxue looked at Li Xingyun with a hint of vigilance and clasped her fists in a salute. No need to thank you. Lu Linxian collected his sword and sheathed it, waving his hand. Before the words could be finished, Li Xingyun raised his hand and a few bamboo sticks flew out of his palm, nailing them to several important acupoints on Ji Ruxue's chest and abdomen, immediately preventing her from moving. Using a bamboo stick to use Huayang needle technique has extremely poor efficacy, but with Li Xingyun's current mid-heaven position, there is still no problem in holding Ji Ruxue. Young Xia, what are you doing? Ji Ruxue tried and found that she couldn't break through the acupoint that was blocked by Li Xingyun with her own internal strength. Senior brother, what are you doing? Lu Linxian scratched his head and said slightly puzzled. Don't worry, Li Xingyun said to Lu Linxian and Ji Ruxue. Then he reached out and took a photo, using his internal strength to take into his hand the bag of Millennium Fire Lingji held in Ji Ruxue's waist. You also came rushing towards the Lingji fire. Ji Ruxue's heart had already sunk to the bottom of the valley. As the maid and disciple of the Empress, did the first task entrusted to him by the Empress fail like this? Just the act of Li Xingyun killing many members of the Xianming sect just now is enough to prove that Li Xingyun's strength is far superior to hers. Judging from their impressive appearance, these two people are actually capable of committing such acts of killing and profiteering. Alas, the misfortunes are numerous and the misfortunes are few. My concubine is like snow, and I feel guilty for being so kind to the Empress. Don't worry, we don't want your fire Lingji. Li Xingyun smiled and took a bag containing fire Lingji, as he walked towards Ji Ruxue. After a moment, Li Xingyun pulled out several bamboo sticks inserted into Ji Ruxue's body. Ji Ruxue's figure paused for a moment, and as soon as she regained her mobility, she wielded her sword and swung towards Li Xingyun. However, before the blade fell, Li Xingyun's figure flashed and he quickly returned to Lu Linchuan's side. You. Ji Ruxue pointed at Li Xingyun, trembling with anger and unable to speak. So big a fire Lingji, 1,000-year-old fire Lingji, why feed it to me? Just take it and grab it. I even said I won't eat anymore. What do you mean by forcing it into my mouth? Hey, senior brother, why did you feed her that fire Lingji? Lu Linxian looked at Li Xingyun with a hint of doubt and asked. Li Xingyun looked ahead and only remembered his beloved, who still knows his future. Is knowing me a good thing or a bad thing for you? Could you please convey to King Qi for me that we will meet soon? If she still has any questions, I will explain today's action. After pondering for a moment, Li Xingyun spoke up and looked at Ji Ruxue. Although Huan Ju is a good martial arts skill and Ji Ruxue's talent is also good, she is still a daughter. If there are no adventures, her martial arts will not be easy to improve. However, with this 1,000-year-old fire Lingji, her future will be much more open. This time, I will enter the game with my own body and seek peace for the world. May you live a peaceful life and not enter this chess game. I hope you can achieve your wish. Upon hearing the words, King Qi, Ji Ruxue snorted coldly and said coldly, what are you? As King Qi, how would you meet with this mountain and wild villager? Li Xingyun remained silent. He is really a very twisted person, he clearly can't bear to part with him. Hello, let me talk about you. My senior brother and I at least saved you from the hands of the Xianming sect. We didn't take the fire Lingji, it's yours. Didn't we also feed it to you? If you want it, just spit it out yourself. If it weren't for us, you would have been slaughtered by the Xianming sect long ago. How could you have been destined to stand here? Upon hearing this, Lu Linxian also had a temper. You. Ruxue was already speechless with anger and had no choice but to turn around and leave. Senior brother, let's go too. Seeing Ruxue leave, Lu Linxian turned to look at Li Xingyun and said. No, wait a little longer. Li Xingyun lowered his head and said in a deep voice. Who are you waiting for? Lu Linxian looked at her senior brother in confusion. She and Li Xingyun had been in the sword house for 8 years and had never heard of senior brother having acquaintances. Black and white are impermanent. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Black and White Impermanence, 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Black and White Impermanence, 2, outside the city of Yuzhou, in the woods. Li Xingyun sat cross-legged, among the corpses of a group of Xianming sect members, closing his eyes and recuperating. Lu Linxian, on the other hand, was anxiously circling around Li Xingyun. Hey, senior brother, do you really think black and white impermanence will come? How long have we been waiting here? Lu Linxuan's pretty face had grown a bit impatient, and he looked at his senior brother who was meditating and asked. Just now, those members of the Xianming sect came for the millennium-old fire Lingji on that girl. 8 years ago, black and white Wuchang was in Yuzhou City. How could they have missed this matter? Li Xingyun thought for a moment and gave Lu Linxian a reason to believe it. To be fair, there are many loopholes in his words. After all, although black and white impermanence was in Yuzhou City 8 years ago, does not it mean that it will also be in Yuzhou City 8 years later? 8 years ago, it was in the middle star position, and 8 years later it will still be in the middle star position. So, what is the difference between living and not living in these 8 years? However, Lu Linxian believed and dispelled her impatience slightly. She clenched her sword scabbard and prepared to continue waiting. The hatred of killing one's father is unforgettable. A little while later. Here we go. Li Xingyun closed his eyes and sat cross-legged in place, speaking calmly. He had already felt the breath of a group of Xianming sect members. To be fair, there have been quite a few grand scenes along the way, with only black and white impermanence, which is already difficult for him to notice. What? Lu Linxian was taken aback and asked Li Xingyun. Before I could finish speaking, I saw a strong wind coming from the dense forest, accompanied by a series of cold and murderous auras. In an instant, a mist arose in the forest. Originally a sunny day, it suddenly became as gloomy as an underworld. In the mist, a pair of curved knives gathered under the cover of the mist to form a large net and flew towards Li Xingyun and Lu Linxian. The cold light of the blade is like a big net covering everything. Lu Linxian had limited experience and was at a loss for a moment, but Li Xingyun casually shook it, and bamboo sticks wrapped in strong internal energy flew towards the curved swords that were flying towards him. In an instant, those curved knives were either shot down or flew away. A group of Xianming sect members took advantage of the situation to surround Li Xingyun and Lu Linxian in groups. Humph, why are you just a few shrimp soldiers and crab generals? Black and white are unpredictable, said Lu Linxian disdainfully, pulling out his sword and scanning the group of Xianming sect members in front of him. Li Xingyun slowly stood up, opened his eyes, and drew his sword in his hand. As soon as Lu Linxian finished speaking, he rushed out like a sharp arrow. The golden sword energy streaks through the air like a trained light, harvesting the lives of the Xianming sect members one by one. Ha ha ha. Since you are so anxious. Ah. In no time, dozens of Xianming sect members present had already been beheaded by Li Xingyun, and even the several Xianming sect members carrying the coffins of Chang Haolang and Chang Xianling were not spared. Before Chang Xianling finished speaking, he felt a violent turbulence lying inside the coffin. The coffin suddenly fell to the ground, and black and white impermanence broke through the coffin in the midst of intense turbulence. Chang Haolang, dressed in black and wearing a long impermanent hat, scanned the corpses of the Xianming sect members on the field, feeling uneasy. This time it's going to overturn. Chang Xianling stood beside Chang Haolang. Who are you, what kind of people are you? Chang Haoling looked at the young man in red clothes and the pretty girl in purple clothes in front of him, and asked with a hint of fear. In just a few seconds, the aura of dozens of Xianming's sect members scattered in various directions on the field disappeared completely. He had just lay in the coffin, unable to see clearly how Li Xingyun acted. However, at this moment, he could still feel the golden flame surrounding Li Xingyun and the intense pressure it brought. Gathering qi to form, one can achieve this step either by being a master at or above the mid-heaven level, or by cultivating special skills. Either way, it's not something that their two central positions can afford. Lu Linxian stared fixedly at the impermanence of black and white, and the tragedy of his father's death and the beauty of Lu Youjia's time surged in his heart. We are the black and white impermanence of the Xianming sect, the confidants of Mengpe. If you kill us, you won't be able to live. Seeing Li Xingyun and Lu Linxian silent, as well as Lu Linxuan's terrifying gaze, Chang Haoling's sense of unfamiliarity grew stronger. He reached out to signal Chang Xianling to retreat, while gathering his internal strength and using his expert skill, the 1,000 corpse and 10,000 poisons palm, to gather the corpse poison in his palm. Although their siblings were worshipped by the Ghost King Zhu Yuan, they had not even learned the skills of the Ghost King. Apart from the method of absorbing people's internal energy in essence, they only obtained this 1,000 corpse and 10,000 poison palm, as well as a scroll of dragon overturning phoenix technique obtained by chance. Neither of them has advanced martial arts skills, otherwise their brother and sister wouldn't still be at the mid-star level today. However, the corpse poison of the 1,000 corpses and 10,000 poisons palm is a very troublesome thing. As long as they touch it, even if their skills are much higher than their brother and sister, they will still die if they hit the road. Just like Lu Youjia 8 years ago, in terms of martial arts and internal strength, he was far superior to his siblings, but he was poisoned by corpses and ultimately died in the underworld. I only hate Uncle Yang for causing trouble. The young man's martial arts skills in front of him may still be on par with those of Lu Yu's 8 years ago, but after all, he is still young and unaware of the dangers of the martial arts world. If Chang Haoling risked his life to let the other party get a bit of corpse poison, his younger sister may not be able to survive today. Li Xingyun's expression was calm, although he had a youthful face, it was as unpredictable as an abyss. However, at this moment, Lu Linxian was staring fixedly at the impermanence of black and white, the revenge of killing his father, which was irreconcilable. She wished she could cut both of them to pieces. They kill countless people in black and white impermanence, little sister, hurry up. Chang Haoling let his heart go and forcefully pushed Chang Xianling behind him. Then, he carried 1,000 corpses and 10,000 poisonous palms and charged towards Li Xingyun and Lu Linxian. Big brother. If you die, I will never live alone. Chang Xianling reached out to hold on to Chang Haoling, but could not hold on to anything. Chang Haoling only felt a flower in front of him, and Li Xingyun's figure turned into a lingering shadow. He pulled him behind him, and before he could turn around, his figure had already returned to Lu Linxuan's side. Little sister. Chang Haoling charged for a moment and quickly turned around, but saw Chang Xuanling's body fall softly. Little sister. Chang Haoling, Yen Yen, exclaimed with a worried expression on his face, then turned back to look at Li Xingyun, only to see a golden gust of wind flying in front of him. It was Li Xingyun who gathered qi and formed it, using the 7-star technique to strike a palm with yang internal power. This palm hit Chang Haoling's chest, and he flew backwards nearly 2 zhang away, right beside Chang Xianling. The two of them lay together. Chang Haoling struggled to get up, but suddenly felt a severe pain in his chest that was unbearable. Unable to get up again, his mouth was filled with a sweet smell. Chang Haoling covered the spot that had just been hit by Li Xingyun's palm with his hand and spat out a mouthful of blood. At this moment, his already pale face became even paler as he watched Chang Xianling, unconscious and unaware of his life or death. Xianling. Chang Haoling struggled to crawl towards Chang Xianling, placing his hand on his pulse. Seeing that his junior sister still had a pulse, he breathed a sigh of relief and turned his head to see Li Xingyun holding a sword, leading Lu Linxian step by step towards them. The two of them walked with backlighting, making it difficult for him to see them directly. Their shadows were gradually enveloping them. Two great heroes, young heroes, and female heroes. I don't know what kind of hatred you have towards me or the Xianming sect, but since we were born in a chaotic world, we also have no choice but to ask the two great heroes to take my life. Xuanling's entry into the Xianming sect is involuntary, and killing is also under my command. It's me, I forced her. Just take my life, I beg you two heroes, take my life. Don't implicate innocent people, let Xianling go. Chang Haolang struggled to get up and knelt down to Li Xingyun and Lu Linxian, pleading bitterly. If you two have a grudge against the Xianming sect, I still have information about the Xianming sect here. I, Xianling, can still be your insider in the Xianming sect. Seeing that Li Xingyun had no reaction, Chang Haolang's heart became heavier, but he still tried to find a way to survive for his little sister. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Evil Laws. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Evil Laws outside the city of Yuzhou. In the forest. Li Xingyun held a sharp sword and looked down at Chang Haolang, who was kneeling on the ground, and Chang Xianling, who had fainted beside him. Li Kungsu, Zhu Youzhen, Li Qiang, Li Siyuan, and Qi Li have all taught him a lot. Among them, Li Siyuan has the most, cutting down the grass and eliminating the root, and doing everything evil. For some people, releasing a tiger back to the mountains is harmful to the country, the people, themselves, and those close to them, without any benefit. For example, Li Tsunli's subordinate Bago, if only in terms of martial arts, is far from his opponent, but he secretly killed Shangguan Yunk and turned many unscrupulous people into living dead people for his control by relying on the venomous snake raised by the secret method of the Shatua tribe in his hand. More importantly, before that, Li Xingyun had a full chance to keep her. In the last days of his life, every time he thought about the scene before Shangguan Yunkei's death, as well as the scene of many unscrupulous people generously dying, it made him heartbroken. Looking back at his previous life experience, this black and white impermanence is simply outrageous. Starting from the city of Yuzhou, he absorbed the internal power of the 5 great Yen rulers, and his martial arts leaped from the middle star level to the small sky level. After he used the Huayang needle technique to disperse his martial arts, he died and was reborn. In the final battle of Qianling, the two of them worked together but were not below the big sky level. Moreover, according to Sanqian Yuan, the method by which Li Siyuan absorbed his internal strength seems to be related to these two individuals. This kind of disaster star, which is full of bones and extremely tolerant, must be eliminated. Junior sister, look at Bai Wuchang. Then, Li Xingyun pointed his sword at Chang Haolang and said, "You, come with me." "Thank you, great Xia." Chang Haolang wiped the blood from his mouth and respectfully kowtowed to Li Xingyun, but beneath his gentle appearance, it was sinister and restrained. Chang Haolang believes that as long as there is no direct action, there will be a turning point in the situation. Only by living can we have the opportunity to talk about hope, no matter what the cost may be. Senior brother, you. Lu Linxian looked at Li Xingyun and hesitated to speak. Don't worry, Li Xingyun turned his face to look at Lu Linxian. Subsequently, Li Xingyun walked towards the forest with Chang Haolang. What's up, you're avoiding me again. Lu Linxian pouted angrily. Then, she drew her broken sword and gestured to Chang Xuanling's neck. Suddenly, his senior brother changed a lot, and he also had many secrets. His martial arts skills improved, and he became more calm and reliable, but forget it, Li Xingyun is still Lu Linxuan's senior brother, that's enough. Great. Great hero, but if necessary, I, Chang Haolang, will go through fire and water without hesitation. After reaching a certain distance from Lu Linxian and Chang Xianling, Chang Haolang covered his chest and knelt on one knee, respectfully saying to Li Xingyun. At this moment, he only felt a burning sensation in his chest, unbearable pain, and damage to his qi meridians, making it difficult to gather qi. The Longquan 7-star technique is already a technique for restraining yin and evil, let alone Li Xingyun's overwhelming advantage over Chang Haolang's current mid-heaven position. Chang Haolang, you black and white impermanence have a method in your hands that can absorb other people's internal energy in essence, and turn it into your own. Hand it over. Li Xingyun turned around and looked up at the feng shui in the mountains with his hands behind his back, not looking at Chang Haolang. With the demeanor of a master, he said calmly. To achieve the goal, sometimes it is necessary to resort to any means possible. In order to stop war and chaos for the world, his current skills are far from enough. Moreover, in the current situation, a strong enough martial arts skill is just an entry ticket. If you rashly introduce other people's internal power into your body, you will inevitably become demonic. Even if you can suppress it with the help of magic, it may still leave hidden dangers. However, in the vast world, there are all kinds of wonders. The so-called Dharma, heaven, and earth absorb all things, is a unique skill of Qi Jing, which is enough for him to easily integrate and control the internal forces of others after absorbing them, gradually turning them into his own use without leaving any hidden dangers. Think about the day when he used Huayang acupuncture to remove the black and white impermanent internal power, sigh perhaps those who enter the world are truly destined to seek without their true intentions. This. Chang Haolang was startled at the words and suddenly looked up slightly, scanning Li Xingyun's figure, but soon he lowered his head again. Great Xia, I do have this skill in my hand. It originates from the Ghost King of the Xianming sect and is incredibly mysterious. At the age of a great hero, he possesses such martial arts skills, coupled with this mysterious method, and I believe he will soon achieve great success in his divine skills. Standing alone in the martial arts world, Chang Haolang lowered his head and patted Li Xingyun's horse, then blew the chip in his hand to the sky, and then spoke up, I just don't know if I have handed over this divine skill. Can you spare our siblings a way to survive, great Xia? Chang Haolang, are you negotiating terms with me? Li Xingyun's voice suddenly turned cold. Even though Li Xingyun's gaze was not on Chang Haolang at this moment, it still put pressure on him like a mountain. I dare not, it's just. Chang Haolang hesitated for a moment, unable to speak. You have committed many evil deeds and have a deep blood feud with my junior sister, but I promise not to take action against your junior sister, said Li Xingyun calmly. Thank you very much, hero. Chang Haolang knelt on both knees and kowtowed repeatedly, saying to Li Xingyun. He is a young genius who has not yet delved into the world. This method of absorbing internal energy is not so easy to practice, and besides, the technique is in his heart. I remember it wrong, can I just say a few words upside down? Today he is destined to die, but it's worth it to exchange his junior sister's life. It's hard to say that in the future, after this kid goes crazy, Xianling can still avenge Chang Haolang. This kid's skill is not low. If Xianling can absorb his internal power while he goes crazy, his future will be very promising. As for Lu Linxian next to Li Xingyun, he completely ignored him. I will ask Chang Xianling again about this cultivation method. If it's not right, you know the consequences. Before Chang Haolang could finish his wild thoughts, he heard a light sentence from Li Xingyun pass into his ear. Chang Haolang's figure trembled suddenly, as if he had been slapped on the head. After a moment, he obediently lowered his head and said, I hope you can keep your promise. After obtaining the martial arts, release Xianling and leave. After a moment, Li Xingyun returned to his original place with a gloomy face on Chang Haolang's face and met with Lu Linxian. Senior brother, you're back. Lu Linxian looked at Li Xingyun walking slowly. Li Xingyun concentrated his internal power at his fingertips, unleashing a few bursts of vigorous energy that ignited Chang Haolang. Junior sister, help me keep an eye on Black Wuchang for a moment. Li Xingyun looked at Lu Linxian and said. Subsequently, he transformed his internal power into vigorous qi and awakened Chang Xianling. Big brother. You. Chang Xianling woke up leisurely. Just as he woke up, he looked at Chang Haoling, who was frozen in place, and Li Xingyun and Lu Linxian. Chang Xianling, come with me. I have something to ask you. Li Xingyun looked at Chang Xianling lying on the ground. Chang Xianling instinctively looked at Chang Haoling. Alas, Xianling, it's my elder brother who is incompetent. Let's accept our fate. Answer whatever the hero asks, and never conceal anything. Chang Haoling let out a long sigh and said helplessly. Under the absolute power gap, he has no resistance. After Li Xingyun led Chang Xianling to a secluded place. Great Xia, what do you have to say? Chang Xianling looked at Li Xingyun with a flattering expression and said pleasantly. Their black and white impermanence is like this, they can bend and stretch, endure and wait, and the little ones have their own way of survival. Chang Xianling, I heard that you and your elder brother have a method that can absorb others' internal power for their own use. Now, let me give you a chance to surrender this method, and I will only kill you, leaving your elder brother Chang Haoling with one life. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Work Plan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Work Plan. In the forest, Li Xingyun held a sword still dripping blood in one hand and two heads still dripping blood in the other. Beside him, Lu Linxian stood with a sword, looking at two headless corpses dressed in black and white with a complex expression. Over the past 8 years, the companionship of her master and senior brother has gradually helped her overcome the pain of losing loved ones. However, considering that Lu Yojia has been harmed by the impermanence of black and white, she is still deeply saddened. Today's great revenge was avenged, and finally a big mountain in Lu Linxuan's heart was moved away. Li Xingyun stood in place for a long time, taking a deep breath and slowly exhaling it. Senior brother, are you okay? Lu Linxian looked at Li Xingyun and asked. Seeing that Li Xingyun was silent for a moment, he comforted him and said, Senior brother, my father and Uncle Li are spirits in heaven and will definitely bless us. The day will be long, so don't be sad. Isn't there still my master and I with you here? Li Huan has done so much for me. Although he has no physical foundation, he has relied on each other for many years, but the kindness of nurturing him is real. I am still waiting to retire and see him off. There are always so many things in the world that go against one's wishes, and the tree desires tranquility while the wind never stops. For you, for my master, and for the common people of the world, I am willing to give everything, whether it be to slay demons and demons, or to eliminate evil and treacherous. I don't even have the chance to work hard for those who have already passed away, Li Xingyun said with a slightly sad expression, wearing a head of thin and broken red hair. Self-discipline leads to peace, indulging in idle clouds and wild cranes. Looking back, one's eyes are so desolate, which is heartbreaking and alarming. All right, Uncle Li, if he were still here, he wouldn't want to see you so immersed in past hatred, Lu Linxian said, looking at Li Xingyun. If you do this again, I'll be angry. Seeing his senior brother still indulging in the pain, Lu Linxian raised his fist and threatened his senior brother. Just combining her pretty face and playful tone, this threat has little killing power, but instead adds a touch of unique charm to it. Okay, senior brother, I'll be happy now. Not only that, senior brother also wants us to be happy in the future. Let's go to Yuzhou City. Upon hearing this, Li Xingyun perked up and smiled, then said to Lu Linxian. Subsequently, he took the lead and walked towards the place where the members of the Xianming sect were riding horses in the distance, carrying two bloody heads. That's dozens of horses, and selling them shouldn't be a small amount. He and Lu Linxian are currently poor, except for staying in a shop, and probably don't even have the money to buy a few pounds of glutinous rice. How could they miss it? Senior brother, why are you still holding those two heads? It's disgusting. Lu Linxian looked at Li Xingyun, who had wiped away the blood on the sword, retracted the scabbard, and walked towards the distance with the heads of Chang Haolang and Chang Xianling. He asked with some confusion. Of course. Guess what? Li Xingyun saw Lu Linxian curious and playful, as if he had sold a trick to the other party. Am I a child? Guess what? Lu Linxian smelled the words and angrily roasted about his elder martial brother's cynical behavior. Speak up quickly, otherwise I'll beat you. Lu Linxian raised his fist and threatened. Hey, don't do it. However, Vexia Lu, do you want to eliminate demons and defend the Tao, and become a famous hero in the martial arts world? Li Xingyun looked at Lu Linxian and asked with a playful smile. At this moment, he seemed to have returned to the days in the sword house. What does it mean? Lu Linxian hesitated and stopped, instinctively looking at Li Xingyun. Junior sister, do you know how many experts there are in this Xianming sect? Li Xingyun sensed that Lu Linxian stopped, and he also stopped. However, he did not directly answer Lu Linxuan's question, but instead looked at him in this way and asked in return. I have hardly left Jianlu in the past 8 years. How could I possibly know anything related to the Xianming sect? Do you know, senior brother? For the past 8 years, Lu Linxian has been practicing martial arts in the Sword Mansion. Uncle Yang has protected Li Xingyun and Lu Linxian very well, and they hardly encounter any danger in the martial arts world. How could they know how many experts there are in the Xianming sect? Halfway through the conversation, Lu Linxian realized that since senior brother had already said so, it was highly likely that senior brother knew. Among the experts of the Xianming sect, there are the Ming Emperor, the Ghost King, and the 4 great corpse ancestors, who are at or above the heavenly position. The experts in the mid-heaven position include Mengpe and the Judge of Water and Fire. Going further down, there are the 5 great Yan Kings. However, the 4 great corpse ancestors have already left the Xianming sect. Li Xingyun looked at Lu Linxian and answered. So, what about black and white impermanence? Lu Linxian looked at Li Xingyun like a curious baby and asked. Here it is. Li Xingyun weighed the head of black and white impermanence and looked at Lu Linxian. I'm asking what level black and white impermanence can rank in the Xianming sect, Lu Linxian asked helplessly as he looked at Li Xingyun. Senior brother or that senior brother, he loves to make trouble so much. Black and white impermanence can only be considered as 2 larger minions in the Xianming sect, Li Xingyun replied. Ah! Xianming sect is so powerful. Lu Linxian widened his eyes and sighed in surprise at Li Xingyun. The black and white impermanence that killed his father, how many nightmares did she have in the Xianming sect? Are she just 2 inexperienced little leaders? So, what does this have to do with what you're talking about, senior brother? Li Xingyun's inexplicable words made Lu Linxuan's CPU emit a fragrance. Simply put, with your senior brother and my martial arts skills, it's not a problem to retreat completely unless a master like the Ming Emperor or the Ghost King arrives personally. We killed Black and White Wuchang. If there is such a commotion in Yuzhou City, then the Xianming sect will definitely take action. Li Xingyun looked at Lu Linxian and spoke eloquently. He has just broken through the mid-heaven position, relying on the exquisite Longquan swordsmanship and the martial arts experience accumulated in his past life to compete against one of the water and fire judges is not a problem, but compared to Mengpe, the villain Tian Yu Star, he is still far behind. However, giving him some time to practice the Qi Classic is another situation. And then? Lu Linxian looked at Li Xingyun and asked anxiously. Both the Ming Emperor and the Ghost King are princes of the Liang Kingdom, and they will not move lightly. Mengpe and the Water and Fire Judge should sit at the helm and will not move lightly. The only ones that the Xianming sect can use are the so-called Yan Kings. Let's just hide in the city of Yuzhou and wait for him. The Xianming sect has committed many evil deeds, and the so-called 5 great Yan Kings are even more ruthless. If we can take advantage of this opportunity to eliminate them, wouldn't it be to eliminate demons and defend the Dao? Li Xingyun looked at Lu Linxian and coaxed him gently. Li Xingyun's true confidence lies not only in his current abilities, but also in the arrangement of villains in the Xianming sect. He can even be certain now that if he rushes into the headquarters of the Xianming sect and turns around a few times, and then goes to the imperial city to slap Zhu Wen a few times, Yuan Tiangang still has a way to make him retreat completely. Since that's the case, why not take the opportunity to decorate it? Li Xingyun's true purpose is internal power, the internal power of the 5 great Yan kings. In his past life, he had fought against the 5 great Yan rulers of the Xianming sect. Although these 5 individuals were only in the great star position, their strength belonged to the 5 elements, and taking only one of them would have a lackluster effect. However, if they all absorbed their internal energy at the same time, it could have a miraculous effect. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Bo Huan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Bo Huan, the place where the people of Xianming sect lead horses. For a while, let's do this. Then that. And finally. Do you understand? Junior sister Li Xingyun tied the black and white impermanent head to a horse while looking at Lu Linxian, giving advice. Senior brother, is this really okay? Master, he would be angry if he knew we were doing this. Also, senior brother, how did you know about the Xianming sect? Lu Linxian looked at his senior brother. Even though she was not deeply involved in the world, she felt that it was too risky. Don't worry, I have absolute confidence, and the old man, master, he won't be angry with the old man. If it's okay, you can push it all onto me. As for how I learned about the Xianming sect, of course it's because your senior brother, I can do anything. Li Xingyun has a bamboo in his chest. The corpse ancestor fled, the ghost king was imprisoned, and Meng Po was an unscrupulous undercover agent. The Xianming sect seems to be at its peak, but in reality, it is far less terrifying than the Tungwen Hall. Moreover, he has malicious people as a backup. If Yuan Tiangang doesn't let him die, even if he wants to die, he won't be able to die. Damn it, there's no proper form, Lu Linxian scolded with a smile, but still agreed. As long as it is what her senior brother wants to do, she will actually do her best to help her senior brother. In his previous life, Li Xingyun was hit by the combined palm of the 4 great Yan Jun, causing his meridians to be completely severed. In the end, his master sacrificed his life to save him. This time, he will not let the tragedy happen again. When he practices the Qi Jing, even the water and fire judge will come along, which is just 2 additional, great supplements. After one more life experience, he also saw through many things. Now that the situation of the Liang dynasty is unpredictable, he doesn't believe it. For the sake of a Longquan sword and the Longquan treasure, Zhu Yugui can't get close to it. So, Li Xingyun and Lu Linxian got on their horses and rushed towards Yuzhou city. As for what they couldn't hold, they had to throw it away. At the gate of Yuzhou, Lu Linxian and Li Xingyun separated and mixed into the crowd. There are defenders, vendors setting up stalls, and many pedestrians at the gate of Yuzhou city. Looking at a person holding so many horses from afar, they all cast curious glances. Li Xingyun tied the 2 heads of black and white impermanence to his sword, used his luck and energy, and threw out the long sword. With the blessing of his rich internal strength, the long sword headed straight towards the character Yuzhou on the wall of Yuzhou. 100 steps away, the long sword pierced straight into the walls of Yuzhou, accompanied by 2 heads still dripping blood. That sword just now, Li Xingyun used the Xingyun sword song, that he secretly learned from his master back then. The Xianming sect does all kinds of evil and has committed many evil deeds. Today, killing the black and white impermanence of the Xianming sect is here to eliminate demons and defend the way. Li Xingyun looked at the stunned pedestrians and the defenders of the Yuzhou city gate and shouted loudly. With the blessing of his profound internal strength, everyone nearby heard what he said clearly. Daxia, was the move you just made the Qinglian sword song, In the already silent crowd, a woman's voice suddenly came out, shouting so and so. Not bad, with my skills in the middle star position, this time when I go down the mountain, I will eliminate demons and defend the way. Li Xingyun shouted, then led his horse into Yuzhou City, ignoring various expressions of surprise, shock, pity, and so on. Just hearing the words, Qinglian sword song, a pedestrian in the crowd had a slight change in expression. He looked up at the two heads hanging on the sword, which were now hanging above the walls of Yuzhou City. He hurriedly sent out the crowd and left towards the distance. When I arrived in the city of Yuzhou, I found a place to sell the horses. Of course, I kept 2 horses and then changed my outfit. This time, he changed from his former red clothes to a suit of iron armor adorned with cold light, as well as a suit of blue clothes, revealing only his face outside. The rest of his body was wrapped in blue clothes and armor, wearing a hat on his head. At the same time, his sword was also nailed to the walls of Yuzhou City, and he replaced it with a buried sheath ring head knife. After changing into a different outfit, the whole person appeared even colder and more heroic against the backdrop of clothing and a waistband. As for the remaining money, he left a portion of the road and food expenses for Lu Linxian and asked his junior sister to buy 2 new clothes. Yuzhou City is so big, let junior sister take a stroll around casually. Subsequently, he casually found an inn to stay and devoted himself to cultivation. Not long. Yuzhou City Gate. For leaders of the Xianming sect, dressed in golden and black armor and equipped with curved swords, arrived at the gate of Yuzhou with over 20 disciples of the Xianming sect wearing black armor and ghost faces. As soon as the pedestrians around saw the battle of the Xianming sect, they almost ran away in an instant. The street vendors pushed their luggage and goods, followed closely behind, and even the defenders in front of the Yuzhou City Gate were nowhere to be seen. In an instant, the bustling city gate of Yuzhou could not even be seen in person. They are really 2 impermanent adults. A little leader of the Xianming sect, dressed in golden iron armor and wearing a ghost face, looked at the 2 heads hanging on the wall of Yuzhou, which were on par with the 2 characters of Yuzhou, feeling greatly frightened. Damn it, these 2 guys, Chang Xianling and Chang Haoling, are usually arrogant and shout at us, but they ended up being hung here by a teenage doll. What a waste. The other head of the Xianming sect felt unlucky. As soon as the words fell, another Xianming sect member on horseback emerged from the city of Yuzhou. He approached the 4 Xianming sect leaders and knelt down on one knee, saying, "We have found the whereabouts of that boy. It was originally difficult to find him, but he killed himself and even pulled more than 10 horses to sell. These horses were all ridden by the brothers who had gone to seize the fire Lingji before. Don't you think you have too much to say?" Before he could finish speaking, he was interrupted by a leader of the Xianming sect. "Yes, sir." The members of the Xianming sect shut up and retreated to the side, knowing what to say. My subordinate heard that the kid's martial arts were only from the middle star position, and he was also recognized by passers-by in the martial arts world as the Qinglian sword song. This is Uncle Yang's famous skill. 8 years ago, Uncle Yang also lost his trace outside the city of Yuzhou. Will the 2 of them have any connection with Uncle Yang? A Xianming instructor pondered for a moment and said. Uncle Yang and Long Quan, these things are not secrets in the martial arts world. Are you really a young person, young and full of energy, unaware of depth? There are still over 100 followers in our Yuzhou branch, and all 4 of us are skilled in the skills of the Little Star sect. We will poison and plot first, and in the midst of a siege, we may not be able to capture that kid. Now the fire Lingji has disappeared without a trace, and the 2 impermanents have died in battle. If the headquarters blames us, we may not escape death. But if we find the trace of Long Quan, then... A leader of the Xianming sect was restless and looked at the other few people. Humph, do you have that destiny for this miraculous achievement? Previously, Chang Haoling and his companions brought over 40 members of the sect. Everyone knew their abilities well, but has anyone come back yet? Let's honestly report to the headquarters. As long as we have found the clue to Long Quan, the headquarters will not be difficult for us. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Heart Demons. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Heart Demons Inside the Inn. Li Xingyun sat cross-legged on the bed, kneading the yin formula in his hands, practicing martial arts and luck, and practicing the Qi Classic. This Qi Classic was bestowed upon him by a master from the 12 caves in Rao Di. It is incredibly miraculous and is no less divine than the Heavenly Gang technique and the 7-star technique. In his previous life, he was injured by Hua Batzi and Gue Tu Yao and became a useless person. After practicing this Qi Classic, not only did his injuries heal, but his martial arts also greatly increased. Now that he has the experience of practicing in the previous life and has no injuries on his body, practicing this Qi Jing is bound to be faster than in the previous life. He can also integrate the Heavenly Gang technique and the 7-star technique with the Qi Jing. As Li Xingyun gradually indulged in his practice, there were also voices echoing in his consciousness. Opening his eyes again, he was no longer at the inn, but on a huge chessboard. The sky is like a round cover, and the land is like a chess game. The game is divided into black and white, and people are chess pieces. And he stands at the center of this chessboard, which is Tianyuan. Looking up at the sky, it was a gray and hazy color, without any blue sky or light. Looking around the chessboard, there were still iron chains shining with cold light, intertwined with each other, shackled this piece of heaven and earth. The chains, not knowing how many, spread all the way outside the chessboard, all the way to the darkness that he couldn't see, boundless. Looking at himself, he still looked like a young man in a red robe, just starting out. The black and white Qi interweave on the chessboard, transforming into a Tai Chi diagram, and then one after another place their pieces. A series of black and white auras fell onto the chessboard, transforming into 100 human figures, constantly fighting against each other. In an instant, the chessboard was filled with shouts and roars, smoke filled the air, and flames of war erupted. Li Xingyun tried his best to see the situation of the chess game, but after you finished singing, our side appeared. One after another, black and white figures transformed into figures fell into the game, and dissipated in the battle. The situation became too fast, even if standing in Tianyuan, they were still chess pieces. He can't see clearly. I can't see anything clearly. Suddenly, a killing intent emerged from behind, making Li Xingyun's hair stand on end, as if a light was shining on his back. Without even thinking, Li Xingyun drew his sword and chopped it off, with a cold light shining in the scorching sun of the 9 heavens. After looking back, he saw the person's appearance clearly. She has purple skin and is as short as a dwarf. Her eyes are black and purple, like a strange demon. It's Zhu Yugui. But Zhu Yugui was turned into a black aura and dissipated on the chessboard with 1 sword and 2 sections by him. Leave only 1 sentence. Li Xingyun, what do you want to do? There was also a burst of mocking laughter. Li Xingyun remained silent. This time, he remained silent. Before he could catch his breath, countless black gasification troops came rushing towards him. Zhu Yozhen stood on a huge chariot, wielding his sword to attack. Jin Gu Taima seems to be rolling black clouds blocking the sky and sun, pressing horizontally. Even if his divine skills are unparalleled, how insignificant is he in front of this 1,000,000-strong army? Out of the battle, there was only 1 sentence left, and we were alone. Li Xingyun, what do you want to do? Then there are Zhu Yuan and Li Kengsu. When Fang Gang stepped out of the battle, Li Ku came here with a wheelchair and his hands were holding the secret formula. An indescribable pressure was overwhelming, which made Li Xingyun feel like a lonely boat on the sea. He was in danger of the storm. The poisonous lord waved his hand again, and thousands of soldiers and gods emerged together, unstoppable, carrying the momentum of annihilation. Rolling black clouds pressed against the city, gradually engulfing the entire chessboard from afar. Li Xingyun leaned on the ground with 1 knee, swung his palm and hit the chessboard directly. The Qi meridian was activated, like an autumn wind sweeping away fallen leaves, dispersing the black and white Qi in the game. In an instant, the entire chessboard was empty, leaving only him. This time, it's really only him left. There is one more sentence about what you want to do. When he tried to endure fatigue and stood up unsteadily, he realized that he was no longer on the chessboard, but sitting in front of a chessboard that had not yet started. There is no piece on the chessboard. There is no one across from him. Your Majesty, how have you been lately? A deep voice came from behind. He will never forget that voice, it's Yuan Tiangang. Having a body of 95 and possessing unique skills such as the Heavenly Gang Technique, 7-Star Technique, and Qi Classic, he even needs to learn the measurement of the Wangliang. Your Majesty, you have truly achieved great success. Yuan Tiangang's emotionless words reached Li Xingyun's ears. This statement is far more jarring than the phrase, waste, mud can't support the wall. Jin Di Jiaoyang, after cutting through his own fear, did he see what you called the great harmony of the world? Did he find the unity of the masses, the aspiration of the people? Can the world you long for live and work in peace and contentment in the so-called prosperous era of Datong? Yuan Tiangang, still dressed in blue clothes and iron armor, with a mask on his face and a hat on his head, walked up to Li Xingyun and looked down at him sitting in front of the chessboard. He asked without any hesitation in his tone. From the Anlushan rebellion to Wang Xianji and Huang Chao, and then to Zhu Wen's regicide and self-reliance, today, it is unknown how many people in the world have proclaimed themselves kings and emperors. The palace was burned into splendid ashes, the heavenly streets were ruined by the bones of the nobles, and the feudal lords rose up in rebellion, often killing people in abundance just for the sake of their single husband's heart. The mountains of corpses and the sea of blood flow into a river. Even a mere poison lord, who is just a chess piece, dares to violate the 9-5. Desert northern bandits, 1 or 2 barbarians, this commander can easily eliminate them, and he dares to call troops on the border and spy on the divine realm. Li Siyuan was no longer a supervisor of the country. From Zhu Wen to Zhu Yugui, Zhu Yozhen, and then to Li Kengsu, the world's princes and marquises, such as Song Wentong and Li Yer, were not only emperors, but also countless chess pieces were exchanged in my own chess game. Speaking of this, Yuan Tiangang placed his hand on Li Xingyun's shoulder. The force on his hand was very light, like cotton wool in the wind, weightless, but it pressed him so hard that he couldn't breathe. What, isn't this your choice? The emperor, Yuan Tiangang, sneered twice and continued. Didn't you falsely claim that after a chaotic world, there must be Datong? Isn't it looking forward to the wisdom of the people's aspirations and the unity of the masses? Isn't it longing for idle clouds and wild cranes? Why can't you even say a word now? Yuan Tiangang spoke in a gentle manner, every word spoken was like a mountain, like a leaning sky. What is the difference between me choosing you and heaven choosing you? Your Highness is still the same. Although it may not be the same as before, deep down, it has not changed. After speaking, Yuan Tiangang moved his hand from Li Xingyun's shoulder and reached out to pick up the chess box containing black chess pieces. But it was pushed down by Li Xingyun. Whether it's the emperor or his highness, there's no difference. There is no ruler in the world, and the war is turbulent. Although I am unable to rule this world, I can sacrifice this body to stop war and chaos for the world. Even if it is only half a day, there may be half a day of peace, and I do not know how many people can be saved from water and fire, and Li Shu is in danger. Whether it's fate or your will, this time, I want those who don't deserve to die to live. To this day, I still believe that after a chaotic era, there must be Datong. The Tang dynasty, worshipped by the feudal lords, is a dragon chair that will never be sat on, and a flag that will never be lifted. If there really is such a unity among the masses, I will wait for him on that dragon chair. The world is uncertain, I will go. The world is not fair, don't go back. This time, I'll start. In the inn, Li Xingyun, who had broken through his heart demon, slowly woke up. Another dream of yellow sorghum, unconsciously, a day and a night have passed. Exercise good luck. Is it just a little less accumulation of knowledge? It's almost the same, just the same. Xingyun sat cross-legged on the bed, feeling the greatly increased internal strength in his body. With the supernatural power of the Qi Classic, combined with the integration of the Heavenly Gang technique and the 7-star technique, his martial arts are almost identical to the Great Heavenly Position, but he is still close to the true Great Heavenly Position. No, there's still a lot to go. Is it because the writing was too poor that there was no comment? I'm so sad. How come there's no one even cursing me? End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Cloud Mystery. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Cloud Mystery Xianming Sect, Commander-in-Chief. In a gloomy and earthy hall. An old woman holding a cane with a gourd hanging on it stood on the highest platform in the hall, holding one cane and carrying the other behind her, facing the two people behind her. The old woman had pale skin, wrinkles on her face, graying hair, and a hunched figure, but she stood in the main position. Xianming Sect, Mengpe. Behind her, there were two people dressed in red and blue robes, both of whom were covered under the robes. Xianming Sect, Judge of Water and Fire. Crazy, so crazy. Under the blue robe, Yang Miao, the water judge, spoke in a cold and unpredictable voice, magnetic yet steady. It was his master, Uncle Yang, who was just a homeless dog, constantly anxious and had to hide in the deep mountains and forests to steal the rest of his life. The person from the Yuzhou branch reported that kid is just a mid-level skill. Fire Judge Yang Yen was equally furious at Li Xingyun's provocative behavior. Killing the people of our Xianming sect and openly hanging their heads on the walls of Yuzhou City, such provocations dare not be dared by Tungwen Hall and Huan Fang. He is a newcomer, why bother? Is the Xianming sect founded by your family? Or do you have the best expert in the world behind you? Or do you have high martial arts skills yourself? Why are you? The two siblings of black and white impermanence, who are usually arrogant, ended up dying at the hands of a teenager. It's really a shame for our Xianming sect. Yang Miao's cold and unpredictable voice came from under the blue robe once again. Alas, the Ming Emperor has just closed down, and now I am in charge of the Xianming sect on my behalf. That's what happened. He and I belong directly to each other. Now that the Fire Lingji has disappeared without a trace, and both of them have sacrificed their lives for martyrdom, it's really my fault. Old Lady Mengpo remained motionless, her back facing the two behind her, and she let out a long sigh. I dare not, I have no intention of blaming Mengpo. It's just that something has happened and I hate the incompetence of black, white, and impermanence, Yang Miao said repeatedly to Mengpo upon hearing this. I heard that the move used by the boy who killed black and white impermanence was Qinglian's sword song, so he should be Yang Shuzi's disciple. 8 years ago, Uncle Yang had no trace in Yuzhou. Now, there is finally a clue to Longquan. Yang Yen spoke to Mengpe and changed the topic for Yang Miao. Coincidentally, it's too coincidental. The Ming Emperor had just closed down and something like this happened soon. Sigh, I hope it's the old lady who worries too much. Go, mobilize the King of Hell and bring back that ignorant little boy. Mengpe pondered for a moment, turned her face to scan the two people behind her, and ordered. Yes, the Water and Fire Judge agreed in unison. Which one to send? Yang Miao asked. Let's all go, Mengpe said. Are all 5 great Yen Jun sent to Yuzhou? Is this a bit of a fuss? Yang Miao asked. Chang Xianling and Chang Haoling are my brothers and sisters. I understand how capable they are. In theory, if they work together, they won't die at the hands of a teenager. Moreover, when this kid makes such a scene in front of the gate of Yuzhou, the clues of Longquan reappear in the martial arts world. The Tungwen Hall and Huanin Square must have taken action. Only when the 5 great Yanjun go, can I rest assured. Old Lady Mengpe took a few steps and explained to Yang Yen and Yang Miao. Since you said that, why don't we go too? Yang Miao looked at Meng Pe and tentatively said. Your responsibility is to sit at the helm and not easily mobilize, Meng Pe said while pondering. It's difficult to ensure that the person sent can bring experience to His Highness, while also ensuring that it does not threaten his safety. Yes, said the water and fire judges Chi Chi. In a picturesque mountain forest, a luxurious and grand building stands between the peaks. The waterfall on the mountain and the strong pine among the rocks add a touch of color to this place. Ji Ruxue slowly walked into this place. Arriving at the entrance of the building, Ji Ruxue stood by the door hesitating, unsure of what to do. Is Shuer back? Come in. Before she could think much, the voice of the Empress came from inside the door. Ji Ruxue heard the words and pushed the door in. The curtains inside the hall are filled, lotus flowers are blooming in the pond, and a strange fragrance is burned in the furnace. The person lying on the couch inside the palace is the Empress of the Huan Fang. She lay tall on the couch, with her slender jade legs exposed, dressed in pink neon clothes that exuded grandeur. Her eyes shone brightly, her delicate skin shimmered with radiance, her goose neck was slender, her collarbone was distinct and exquisite, and her figure was extremely impressive. She had a snowy buttocks and fat goose thighs, and her face was incredibly beautiful, exuding an indescribable charm. In a moment, so, you have enjoyed the fire Lingji, said the Empress, rubbing her fingers against the skin on her jade legs after the curtain fell on the bed. Her tone is neither sad nor cheerful, making it difficult to hear emotions. I am guilty and have let down the love of the Empress. It is undeniable that I am willing to accept all punishment. Ji Ruxue knelt down on one knee and answered to the Empress. Failure means failure, and this time she has no explanation. Do you say that person has superb swordsmanship, behaves like a ghost, and exudes a golden aura all over her body? The Empress lay on the couch and asked. Yes, Ji Ruxue replied. If you say he knows about fire Ganoderma, then he cannot be unaware of the preciousness of this millennium-old fire Ganoderma. Why did he feed you the fire Lingji? The Empress asked again, which left Ji Ruxue unsure of how to answer. This I don't know. Ji Ruxue just wanted to burn down the CPU and couldn't understand why Li Xingyun did it. According to your statement, that kid's martial arts may not be below the level of the little heavenly one. At the age of less than 20, he actually has such skills. It seems that he has a chance encounter. The Empress pondered for a moment and spoke up. She did not doubt Ji Ruxue. Although Ji Ruxue's statement was bizarre, sometimes the more bizarre it was, the more likely it was to be true. Report to Empress Dowager, he. That thief has one more thing that I dare not conceal, but. Ji Ruxue hesitated for a moment when she remembered what Li Xingyun had asked her to bring to King Qi. Report to Empress Dowager, there is intelligence coming from Yuzhou City. Just before Ji Ruxue finished speaking, a maid from the Huanin workshop walked in and knelt down on one knee beside Ji Ruxue, respectfully holding a love report in her hands. Oh. Yuzhou. This is really interesting. The Empress smiled and her jade hand extended the curtain, exerting a slight force. With her profound internal strength, she took the information from the maid's hand into her palm and flipped through it. After reading it, the Empress casually threw a portrait in front of Ji Ruxue. The portrait was like a dart, with lightning and fire flying in front of Ji Ru in front of her. However, after reaching Ji Ruxue's body, it instantly lost all the driving force to move forward and slowly fell like fallen leaves in the wind. Ji Ruxue held the slowly falling portrait with respectful hands. You came back from Yuzhou. Look, do you recognize the person in this portrait? By the way, you said he even asked you to bring a message, what is that? The Empress lay on the couch, with a hint of laziness in her tone, asking Ji Ruxue. End of this chapter.